Hi and welcome to this little tutorial. Today I want to talk about a question which is asked pretty often, especially from people new to Xfrog. It is related to the density of trees or tree structures. We have a simple branching structure right here. It's built of basic branch components. You can see our level 1, level 2, level 3 right here. And level 3 is generating some leaf objects. To keep the view uncluttered, I'll change some filter settings. I'll hide the circle splines and the path splines. So here we can see the resulting branching structure. I only changed the node preset to alternate perpendicular so that we get a more 2D tree. This helps to see what is going on in our branching structure. I also changed the node angle parameter. I make those pointing upwards. The child branch is pointing upwards, and I changed the thickness parameter so that the trunk and the child objects are a little bit thinner. I just did those changes to make it easier to see what is going on in our hierarchy. So you can see that despite the fact that we have 3 branching levels, we almost have no leaves in our tree, and also in the upper area we almost have no child branches. This is the case despite the fact that our node count in default branch components is set to 10. So, 10 is true for the first branching level. So this means the trunk or level 1 branching system generates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 child objects. But if we now take a look one level higher, so this level 2 branch is only generating 1, 2, 3, 4 child branches. And if we go higher up in the tree, for example this one is only generating 1, 2 child branches, and those two generate no child branches at all. And similar is true for the leaves. You can see level 2 is also set to node count 10, level 3 also to node count 10. Despite this value, we really don't get many leaves in our tree. So why is this happening? The reason is simple and is this situation is simply caused by the node growth parameter. You can see it right here. Node growth is controlled by a curve. This is the node growth curve of our level 1. And if you open up the details of this curve, you can click those little dots and you can see the values right here. And you'll notice that we have a value of 50% right here in the middle of the tree, also about 50%. And towards the higher areas, we have 0% node growth. This means that the level 2 branches down here in this area receive a node growth of 50%. And if you now take a look at the length of those branches, you'll notice that they have about half of the length of the main level 1. And apart from the length, they not only grow to just half the length, they also only generate about half of the child objects that we would expect when we look at the node count value. So the branch objects in this area generate about 50% of the child objects that we specify right here. And because the node growth value is so low in the upper areas of our tree, we simply don't get any child branches. Now some people might ask, actually there's even, there are even less branches than we would expect, because right here we have about 50% of node growth, but we only have 1, 2, 3, 4 child branches, which is, not exactly the half of 10. And in some areas this might be even more extreme. So here we have for sure a node growth which is bigger than 0%. You can see that our branch has been growing a bit. I'd say it's probably a value of 15% in this area, but we don't have any childs at all. So this is caused by a different parameter, which makes the cause even more complicated in some cases. This is caused by a node distribution. By default, this curve is used. The higher the values, the higher the density of child branches will be in this area. So at the base of the level 2, the density is set to a low value, so not many branches would appear in this area. They are pushed outwards by this node distribution curve, and this means here the first branch usually would start, but because of the node, or the first child branch should grow, but because of the node distribution curve, the child branches are pushed outwards, and actually in this case pushed so far outwards that they won't appear anymore. So if we use a more even, a more regular node distribution curve, I'll do this for all other levels too, then you'll see the child branches will start to grow earlier, and then they also will appear in the upper areas. But this is only a small side effect, and just makes the complete cause a little bit more complicated, so I wanted to mention it. Our main problem still simply is that not enough growth is reaching those outer areas or higher areas. One option or one possibility to work around this problem is pretty brute force. Simply increase the number of node count, the number of child objects. So with the third branching level active, I'll increase that one to 50, for example. Now you can see we have a lot more child branches, a lot more leaves in those areas, and even up here the first leaves are appearing. So for the second level we could do something similar, for example increase the node count to 25. Now you can see we are getting a more dense branching structure, which starts to resemble a tree. And as I said, the node distribution curve, which is by default looking something similar to this, can make this even more complicated, because in that case we even have to use higher values, so probably 150 right here or 75 right here. So you should keep this option in mind, but as I said, it's pretty brute force. So I'll return those number back to their defaults for now. And let's take a look at a more elegant solution. Select the first branching level, our trunk. Scroll down, and below node growth you'll notice this parameter called node density. Node density controls the amount of child objects, but not directly how many um, child objects of level 2 would be generated, but the grandchild number is affected. So if I increase the density, I'll do this, I'm doubling the intensity, I'm setting it to 100. You notice that I didn't get more of the level 1 branches, but I got more of the level 2 branching structures. See, if I turn this back to about 100%. So with this control curve, you can increase or decrease the number of grandchilds. So if you now take a look at our node growth curve, we can create something similar for node density, but simply the other way around, probably looking similar to this. So in those areas where we have almost zero growth, we simply increase this value higher and higher until we also get some of those grandchilds in here. So this already helped to create a more dense branching structure. Now we select, or we could simply choose copy, right click, choose copy. Now we go to the second branching level and do pretty much the same right here. I'm choosing paste, and now the density of leaves is controlled with this curve, but we actually have to use even higher values in that case. Something like this, for example. So with node density, you can counteract the node growth curve. So if you use node growth to create shorter branches in the upper areas, you can use node density to create more grandchilds in this area. So now we have seen two methods to avoid those super sparse trees. A brute force way by simply increasing the node count number, and a more elegant solution by making use of the node density parameter. And of course both methods can be combined. But there's a third way which actually also can be combined with those two first methods, and I'll show you the third way, because I think the node density and the brute force method, they work nicely, but sometimes it can get hard to understand what is going on if you have many branching levels. So it's getting complicated, and sometimes it's simply hard to control how many child branches really are generated. Now to show you the third method, I'll reset the node density values to default. Therefore right click the parameters, oops, it's of course the wrong one, right here, node density, reset to default, and that one, yeah, is default. Good, so here we have the standard settings, or more or less the standard settings. The third method simply attacks our bad node growth parameter, or parameter, however. I'll simply drag those control points upwards, create a similar curve, but simply starting at around 100% and then going down to about 50%. And now you'll see that, of course, the next level grows much longer, produces a lot more child objects, and as we have 100% of node growth right here in this area, that one should produce 10 child objects. So we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 behind there, perhaps at least. So we are around 10 child objects. And this is of course much more predictable than the default behavior. And also you'll notice that not only level 2 is growing longer and producing more child objects, but also the level 2 branching structures are growing longer and producing slightly more child objects. And now I'll just copy this curve and use the same curve on the second level. And now you can see that the level 3 is almost receiving 100% growth in this area. We are producing a lot more child objects, and even in the area up here where before nothing was growing, we get pretty dense growth. Now if you choose this method, the node growth parameter, to control the overall density and to avoid this overly sparse trees, then you might have one issue. You'll notice that the overall length ratio of trunk to branch is pretty much different from the default behavior. So if you want to have a similar behavior with the node growth method, then you have to work on the length of the splines. That's actually pretty simple. So I'll make those splines visible again. Sorry. We take a look at level 2 at the spline. I'm simply using the scale tool and I'm reducing it to about the half. This is actually the same length that we got before when node growth was set to 50%. So I'm simply using about half the length for this spline. And now for the third branching level, we have to use about a quarter. Let's say probably a little bit more. I'll use a third roughly. So now we have about the same length ratio of trunk and branching levels, but we have a lot more density. So this is actually a base, a start, a good start to create a nice little tree. Of course, it's still possible to combine the node growth method with the node density method or the brute force method. For example, we could choose the level 2 branching structure, head over for node density and increase the density in the upper areas. And this is actually something I do pretty often. I usually combine the node density parameter together with the increased node growth parameter. So I hope you now understand a little bit better why by default your Xfrog trees will look a lot too sparse. It has nothing to do with the triophile aliens like we could see during the last few minutes. So simply combine increased values of node growth. If needed, reduce the spline length of the child branches to about the half or probably even a quarter, and combine this with the node density to counteract the reduced values in those areas right here. And if you do so, you'll get nice, evenly dense tree or branching structures. Thanks for watching.